And hello, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you've had a lovely lunch. We started off before this with tuples, and we had done control structures, loops, if statements, all of that before that. So we're now entering the phase where we're actually looking at collection types. So we're predominantly looking at how do you take large amounts of data. It could be in the form of list. It could be on the form of tuples. How do you bring all of this data in one place, collect it in a data structure, and then start working on that data for doing your operations. So in data science, when you go to do data science, you will notice that tuples and lists are not something that you would commonly use. You would more commonly actually land up using something that's called as data frames. So when you have data which comes from like tabular structure, like rows and columns, you would land up having data frames, and data frames is part of Pandas library. So towards the next weekend, we will actually be starting a journey in Pandas and NumPy. So Pandas and NumPy both will allow you to get insights on how to do really detailed operations on your data. But to understand Pandas and NumPy, it's important our concepts of tuples and lists and dictionaries and sets are very, very clear. So the topic that we're covering today is a very important topic. It's a topic that it's a concept that you would use in most Python programs. When you do data science, any Python program you look at would most certainly have a list, or it would have a tuple, or it would have a dictionary or a set or something of that sort. So it's really important. And this creates the basis for you to then progress on to doing work on NumPy and doing work on Pandas. So without further ado, let's continue from where we left off. Suvir, if you're ready, should we start with tuples again?
Yes, Sanket, I'm back. We can start.
Perfect, super. Okay, over to you, Suvir.
Sure, thank you. Okay, friends, I am back, and I hope you all are also back in the class. I have shared the screen, so I hope we all are able to see the right screen, which I have shared, which is lesson number 3 in Python. So we will start from where we actually left off. Again, I'll try to keep this session a bit interactive compared to what we did before the break. I will try to be more interactive because this is actually post-lunch. So I want most of you to be attentive in this, and that we can manage only with the Q&A. So we'll try to do that as far as possible. So any questions before we went with the break? We looked at the tuples. They are usually, we also discussed the examples on where and which scenarios we use tuples as a data structure. And I also said tuples in Python more or less is equivalent to a vector in mathematics or in any other programming language. So as an example, in our programming, we don't use tuple as a structure. We call that as vectors. There are significant differences in the syntaxes and also in the architecture of these programming language. But as far as Python is concerned, we are using tuples to store data which cannot be altered or changed as we move on. So one of the example which I think Sanket also provided in the past example is for the multi-threading activity. But that is more from the programming perspective, deployment perspective. And from the data science perspective, we have already discussed about where we can use tuples. We use in scenarios, as I said, we can create a master tuples where we can look up values, especially we do that when you want to create semantics for a particular thing, correct? So I'm sure that you know when we want to create a master semantic for a particular domain, could be an insurance, or could be banking, or could be retail or e-commerce and anything for that matter, we do create master data in everything, right? So as an example for master data could be the regions where your company operates. So that will become a master data for your reporting eventually. So let's look at another example of a tuple. And can we look at this one? So we now know that tuples are created in Python using a round bracket. And it can have data of several data types. The only thing what we can't do with tuples is we cannot edit it or we cannot change it. So the best way to find that is in any programming language. So let's say we have created this tuple. I'll just rerun this one more time because I think the session got logged off. So I'll just run this one more time and you can see that we are printing our simple tuple with 3 elements, which is numeric. Okay. So what we want to do is to check what kind of an options do we get or what kind of a methods are available in this tuple. So I'm going to do TUP and I would expect everyone can also do the same thing. You can do the TUP and the dot, and you can see there are only 2 methods available in this particular structure. Either we can count the elements in that data or we can index basically the indexes which we have, and that is something which we can get that. In any scenarios, if you want to seek help on these things, you can very well do tup.count. It returns number of occurrences of a value. Okay, you can either use this method to count the elements or you have that index part. Okay, I'm going to do this one. You can see tup index value of what, and you give me the start and the stop of that. So you give me the value for these indexes which I'm giving out. So these are the only 2 methods available in tuple. But unlike tuples, if you see list, we have several different methods available in that. But we will come to the list a bit later. Can anyone give me an example how this tuple is created? So we have created a variable called as tup_nested. This is a single tuple. You can see this. And there is another tuple which is 4, 5. So when I run this, it gives me a nested tuple. So that means this is index number 1 or 0 for Python. And this is index number 2 or 1 for Python. So the above example shows how one tuple can be included in another tuple. This is perfectly normal in Python as tuple can store an object of any type. So what will happen if I try to use the same method what I was using in list? So let's see, can I do that tuple_nested? I give you the first index and you get me that. Can you see that instead of giving us only a single element that is 1, which was the case earlier, now I am using this standing bracket for element retrievals. Okay. Can you see this? Standing brackets for element retrieval is what I want to do. And I've simply provided element number 0, which is actually the first element itself, which is a collection of all other elements. There's a question by School Fun. How do you use tuple with variable value? I didn't get that question. So is it like, how can you put values of tuples in a variable, which we have already done? If you see, this is the tuple, and we have put that into a variable. And that's what I showed to you, that this is a variable, tup is a variable, and you have only 2 methods available in this variable. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. Moving forward, so this is a nested tuple, so that means we just can't create tuples with single elements, but we can create different tuples in the same structure with different elements, as we saw before. Let's see. So one can also convert any sequence into a tuple. So if I want to convert it into a tuple, I will use a keyword in Python called as tuple, which is this one. And you can pass in your actual structure or the object which you have, and you can convert that into a tuple. What does Python give? So this is actually a list, and you see we converted the list into a tuple. What you see, the type of tup, what kind of a type we get, you can see that the type here is tuple. If you don't want Python to utilize the memory, you can simply write print of type of tup, and you would should see that it is returning as class of tuple. So very good. We are able to create tuples in Python. There's a question reiterated, no. So can we use only static values in tuple? That's correct. So that's correct, actually. So if you try to alter any element value, so how do you alter? I showed that to you the way we do it in the list. So let's say if you go tuple and you give me the first element and you give me the first element for that. Can you see? Sorry, this is an error. So if you give me the first element for this, you give me 1 for tup, which is this one. Okay. So you've given 1 for this. Can I replace this? So get this 1 changed to 5. Okay. Let's say we do this. And I've already showed this to you before the lunch breaks. When you try to assign any new value to a tuple, so we were retrieving 1 in this case, and we wanted it to replace it with another number. It says object does not support item assignment. This we had already seen before the break. So just to give you answer, no, we have to use only static values. Once you have created, you cannot change that. Harsh, Jen, what's the use of tuple in real world? Harsh, we have already discussed that, but okay, we are typically using it for creating master data, or once you create that for lookup values, especially in data science, we are creating tuples. Yes, you can store tuples as list elements, but you cannot operate on just like list. Pooja has a question. Do we extract single element from one index, say example element 2 from the tuple? If you want to extract element 2, you have to keep using indices. So 0, 1, 2, you can use to extract those things. Do we extract single element? Yes, we can extract a list of elements also. So nested tuples is not just like 2D list. Firstly, we can say that tuples are just one-dimensional. So we cannot say that it's a two-dimensional. So two-dimensionals could be a matrix or an array is a two-dimensional, but tuples are a single dimension. Can we store tuples as list elements? Yeah, you will have to convert that into a list by using a keyword called as list and just mention the tuple name and or a variable. You'll be able to do that. Can we make up a tuple as a list? Yes, we can very well do that. We can convert a tuple into a list by following a keyword called as list and then your tuple name. You can see you have successfully converted your tuple, which was earlier with a round bracket of 1, 2, 3. You have converted that into a standing bracket of 1, 2, 3. So let's say if I put this tup underscore list, because I've converted it into a list, I'll do this. And now you would see that there are several different options available for us to actually operate on this list, because this object is no more a tuple. It is actually a list. So we will talk about list a bit later on, but yes, I hope I have answered the questions. What is the difference between a list and a tuple? Very soon we will realize, Vijay. Rockstar, I think your question is already answered about how to create a list from a tuple. So how do you access elements of a tuple? I think this we have already seen, but let's go through this. But see, of course, now you can take this, our prior example of the refrigerator, right? So when you bought a refrigerator, you stacked items in that. You created shelves, you stacked your daily items of eating or food items, you started to store in that. And when you bought the refrigerator, you have options to put items inside the refrigerator. You have options to retrieve items from the refrigerator for daily basis, of course. So tuples, let's say we have inserted some items in that, and now there is a need for us to retrieve those elements. To give an example for this one, when do you want to do this? Say you want to subtract 2 matrices. Okay, so you have 2 matrices and you want to subtract that to basically get a third matrix. So you can take that as an example, that you would take up a set of matrices and subtract that from another set. So the accessing elements more or less does the same thing. Indexes in Python start from 0, as we had seen this before. as like in most other programming languages. So the top 0 is going to get us the first element in the tuple. And this is what we have already seen. We do have an option to get sequential elements like from position number 1 all up till something. We can do that. We're going to show that in just a moment. Tuple does not necessarily have to be homogeneous. It can be heterogeneous in nature. This means it can store objects of different data types. Can you see this example? Now, in this one, we have one as a string, second one as a list, third one as a vector or a tuple, and fourth one as a Boolean. So this is actually a combination of different data types. And when we run this, you can see that Python has preserved the individual structures for them. They have not converted that into a single structure. Let's say if tuples would have been homogeneous, everything would have changed itself to a string. But if you look at the first element is still a string, the second one is a list and a tuple and a Boolean. Yes, so there's a question, why the output comes as class of tuple? Because that time it was a tuple and later on it became a list. It's protect data for further modification. That is correct, Swapna. So tuples actually prevent to accidentally modify the data. As in the master list, let's say. So solutions team is asked the question, tuple, list, and dictionary all are single dimensional. No, only tuples are single dimensional. List, dictionaries, they are multi-dimensionals. Dictionaries, you can call it as two-dimensional, but list can have several different dimensions. Because the way we have nested tuples, we similarly have nested lists. And one list can have multiple sublists. So that, and if one list is multidimensional, you can imagine we can create many dimensions using the list. To give the example of dimensionality, I will come on to that part definitely. So just like we access list standing bracket, can we do that in nested tuple? Yes, we can do that. Abhishek, can we use loop in tuple? Yes, we can use. Tell me when we can use loop in tuple. Yes, we can use loop. See, loops are to retrieve the elements. Till the time you're not trying to change the element, like you are providing an is equal to or an assignment operator, till the time it is okay. Or you want to retrieve an element of a tuple and you want to save it into another variable, it is also fine. Why does the tuple point come out in parentheses? Output come in parentheses because it has a structure of tuple. List to tuple conversions is simply you use a tuple as a keyword. See, Vijay has a question, and I completely understand, guys. This question is very obvious, and it comes from most of the time, especially. Vijay has a question saying, what's the real-time use of this? I mean, whatever you see, whether on your YouTube or your mobile phone, when everything is driven by programming. The gestures on your phone, which you see, like, you can simply move a single finger and the phone will unlock for you. Your kind of face recognition or maybe your fingerprint recognition in your phones. Whether you watch a YouTube recommendation system, you have seen that YouTube will always recommend you your type of choice because keeping the history in mind, of course. These are all coming from Python programming at the back end. And I'll definitely talk about some more real, if this is at a very high level, Vijay, what I just spoke about the uses of Python, like in LinkedIn. Have you seen these channels like LinkedIn? They keep you so engaged, or even for that matter on YouTube. Let's say I did a comment on one of the videos 2 years ago, and some person did a like on that comment now. So YouTube sends me an email about someone liked your comment or something like that. Would you like to comment him back? LinkedIn also does the same things. They want to keep you engaged. That LinkedIn might send you an alert or a notification that people have not heard you from a while. Could you please do a post or something like that to keep the conversation on? All these things are happening. When you go to Amazon, people also bought this. You get a recommendation in the bottom section of the web page, right? People also bought this. How do you think those lists are appearing, that you can take that as a list of items? So when you go to Amazon web page and you look for a product, let's say you look for a home hygiene product, and in the bottom of the section, you will see customers also bought, correct? You can take that as a list in Python that has a collection of another 15, 20 items in that. And how does those items change? Because list has a capability to remove and add items, correct? We have options to append the list or extend the list. So those things are happening this way in a web page. So I'll simply go in that division of my web page and I will mention the Python list over there. And I will provide some CSS and some aesthetic on that part. And the moment I refresh the page, the products will be displayed as per what is given in the list. Can the nested tuple value be heterogeneous? Yes, absolutely. Can we use XYZ or ABC instead of 1, 2, 3? Yes, absolutely, Priyadarshini. The only thing is that instead of 1, 2, 3, your tuple becomes a string tuple. Right now with 1, 2, 3, your tuple is actually a numeric tuple. You can see here, right? When we do the type of tuple, you can see, you can see that it says it's a class of tuple indeed. But if you try to retrieve an element from this, it's going to tell you whether it's an integer type or it's a string type. So Shivendu has a question: if tuple has employee list and need to change as there is a change in employees, how do we do that? We cannot modify a tuple. So this is a program. This is an architecture flaw, Shivendu. When you know that employee keeps changing, the list is going to be all. We need options to alter the list. Then why do you save that into a tuple? Simple. It's a choice, right? So programmer has a choice what data to be stored in what structure. The programming language is not telling us that you store employee list into a tuple. It's your choice after all. So tuples, Vinaya has a statement, a tuple can have multiple tuples in it. So this becomes multi-dimensional. No, it does not. Multi-dimensional is something which has got rows and columns. Tuples, they don't have rows and columns. They have a direction. They are just moving in one direction. They don't have a dimension to it. You will soon see this practically when we see all this. So definitely, how do you convert your hello into a tuple is by using the tuple keyword. This is to retrieve the elements from the tuple. You can see indexes in Python start from 0. So let's see this particular tuple. So we've got this heterogeneous tuple with us, and you can see that yes, everything is heterogeneous with data types, and you can see they're all surrounded with the round brackets. So that itself means that this is a full-fledged tuple. So the tup is actually a full-fledged heterogeneous tuple for us. So the tuple itself is immutable, but if an object inside a tuple is mutable, it can be done so by directly mutating the object in place. This is perfect, right? So I'll just elaborate that in just a moment. Okay, but I got it now. Yeah, so if that's the case, Shivendu, it's recommended not to use data where you are likely to. It's typically used for master data. I think I gave the example for a region. So it's much better to store your masters in things like tuples. Yuvan is, can we set a variable? Yes, we have been using a variable only as tuple, right? So this tup itself is a variable. So the tup itself is a variable. Okay, so let's go and look at some of the available. I'm just going to run this one so you can see that, okay, we have this. And let's see what are the methods available with us in this tuple. You can see, sorry about this. So let's try to append this tuple. Okay, so we are saying that you retrieve, definitely this is the type of tuple. You can see the type of tuple is going to be a tuple. So that means we cannot change the elements in this tuple, right? But you see if the second position of this tuple is actually a list. And what we have seen is lists are completely mutable. You can edit them, you can extend them, you can remove items, you can pop items from a list, etc. So if the list is a part of tuple, so that means the list also becomes like tuple? No, it's not like that. List will still have its own features to do the modifications in that. So let's see. I want to do, you give me the tup1 dot append. So what is tup1 in this case? Let me insert a cell here. And since we have the tup, so tup standing bracket, we have 0 and 1. So I say you give me the tup of 1, and the tup of 1 is a list. So you give me the print and the type of tup of list. So you will see that it is actually a class of list. So this should give me all the flexibility to change this structure, right? So let's go and do this. Tup1 dot append, append to 4, okay, which is actually 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that means we want to append this list with an extra value as a 4. You can see this. Okay, there's a question. We can try to do that. So what does the tup -1 is going to give us? Tup standing bracket -1. You can see. You need to provide to drop that value, basically. Okay. So this is 1. This is what we have, 0, all colon 1. So let's say we have only our first element. We are just taking the first element. Let's see, we have the first and the second element. So let's say tup of standing bracket -1 colon. Okay, you're getting this true part. It gives you a boolean. So let's say I want to go all up till start from -1. That means true, it's not available there. And it's not available even on the second position over here. So this is something which is not retrieving data for us. True is going to give us because we're going, the first position is -1 instead of 1. The presence of that element, basically. Okay, so here, let's go with the append. We tried tup1 dot append as 4, and you can see that list is totally appended as with another element. Now, there are options in this. We have tup standing bracket 1 and dot. You can see that we have got different methods out here. We can sort. I think there was one question before the break that if can we use a for loop to sort the list? You don't have to do that because we already have a sort method. Reverse is to reverse the elements, remove, pop. Pop is to remove the item and return the value. Okay, there are differences I'm going to tell you in just a moment. So we had used this, one of the things called as append. And if we do a question mark on this, tup1 dot append, append object not found. Okay, so we're going to actually do this to the actual list, not to this tuple. But more or less, this code inserts, or I would say, append say existing list. This is actually appending an existing list. So can we try that for our other items? So I can say the tup1 and I have 2, let's say 2. And what is this? It gives me this one. And there is no method available. You can see other than count and index, there is no method available for the append. So even if I try to do that, it's going to give me an error. So you should have those methods availability in the IntelliSense which you are looking at. If those methods no worries. So we saw that, however, top2.append would now work as it has an index of 2 and we have a tuple index 1 was an array, so the list got appended. So basically, so if you have a nested tuples with you and you have one of the objects as mutables, you can very well mutate that. While tuples themselves are immutable, let's concatenate. What is the what shortcut is used here to get those functions? Any method to reverse a tuple? No, there is no method, Somesh, to reverse a tuple. Solutions team, how to print tuple in a reverse order? No, there is no directly. There is no method inside the tuple to get that part, guys. But you can very well write a function to do it. But again, the point is you will have to create a new tuple because since tuples are immutable, you cannot reverse it. If you're reversing, that means you're trying to change a tuple. Yes, Pooja has a question. Does append add element at the end only? Yes, that's a part of list. But there are other options, Pooja, like extend. And we will also see what are the differences in append and extend. Yeah, so these are the things for the tuple. Yes, so Abhishek, -1 returns the, sorry about that. So the -1 returns the last element using -1. 6 will return from last element from last to till fifth element. That is correct, Abhishek. Mayank is, how can we change the value of list entered in the tuple, like list of items? Okay, this is a good question. How can we change the value of list entered in the top like list of item in selling websites on Amazon in tuple? No, you don't. You will not definitely show that in a tuple. You will definitely show that in a list. And since list is giving you options to make changes, you are very well free to do that on your web page. Can we find a particular value from any element of a tuple? Yeah, you can do that. You can very well do that. Like is or like, which we're going to do that moving forward. Why list inside the tuples are immutable? No, is this your question, Alok? Why list inside the tuple are immutable or why list inside the tuples are mutable? Swapna, is only in list we can modify tuple? No, it's not like this. If you have, yeah, only in list you can modify tuple. Yes, because lists are, you can mutate that, right? Mutate means you can create new things out of that. Mutable means changeable. So in tuples, lists are whichever object, not just list for that matter. If you think dictionaries are mutable, if you think data frames are mutable, which they are, arrays are mutable. You can place arrays as a heterogeneous data inside a vector or in the tuple, and you can change that. Till the time Python supports that object to be mutable, you can do that whether it's inside the tuple or it's outside the tuple. So let's say create tuple 1 and tuple 2. We have created some tuples, and when we take the addition of these tuples, it's going to give us an extended tuple. Now, guys, if some of you might be thinking about this to give us 3 elements. The top 3 should result in a 3 element with a value of 5, 7, and 9. But this won't happen, and this won't happen even in the list. So there is a small thing in Python. Alok has a question that when the list is inside a tuple, why they are mutable? Can anyone answer that? Alok has 2 questions. Firstly, why list inside the tuples are mutable? Yes, so that is your question, Alok. So why they are mutable? See, because firstly, tuples are heterogeneous, so they can store data. Yes. That's correct. Okay, so fine. That's fine. That's great. So solution team is saying that we have an output with a tup. It'll print the result, so the elements of a tuple in a reverse order by using a standing indexing, right? So you've used some negative indexes over there to get the reverse of the tuples. So that's fine. If that method is available, we don't have to create new tuples to get the reverse orders. Okay. So there's another question. Because lists are mutable, so if they are inside the vectors or tuples, that still doesn't stop them from offering that features of being mutable, right? Or being changeable. So that's the reason if lists are inside the tuples, they are still mutable. The feature is not disabled of their changing feature is not disabled. That's correct. So Amit has given the answer. That's because the list has a mutable feature. So Mohit is also given that answer. Danish is also given the answer. So yes, I hope that answers the question, guys. What happens when we multiply the tuple? What do you think the answer of this likely to be? One can multiply the tuple to create a larger tuple. So we saw the addition of the tuples. Now we are seeing the multiplication of the tuples. How do you think tuples can be multiplied? If I cannot add them, so 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, if I try to add it, it extends the tuple. Manikanta has a question. Manikanta has a question. What is the difference between tuple and array? Would anyone like to answer that question? What is the difference between a tuple and an array? Definitely, one of the prominent answers which we're going to get from this one is Manikanta for you is going to be that tuples are not multidimensionals, but arrays are multidimensional. Second, tuples are heterogeneous. They are storing different data types, but arrays are homogeneous. I hope that answers the question. We can change the list, but we can't replace the list with other data types as string. So Shilpi has given some answers. Okay. So what's going to be the answer for this one? Specified number of times. So this is going to repeat tuple specified number of times. So it's going to give us like what? 8 elements into this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to give us 8 elements. Now you might be wondering, when we try to create a list, same behavior Python throws up. When you try to do any operation on tuples, same behavior that Python throws up. You cannot add up two lists, you can simply concatenate them. You cannot multiply, you can just reproduce. So why such behaviors? Thanks, Purnima, for that answer. Thanks, Virendra, for that answer. That's correct, Seema. Thanks for that. Thanks, Bobby. Tuple is immutable and lists are mutable. Tuples are represented with round list. That's very well. That's very good, Bobby. Thank you so much. I hope everyone is also learning along with what people are learning. So I can see a lot of answers coming up from this side. Okay, so coming back to Python. So multiplying tuples, one can multiply the tuple to create a larger tuple like this. So it's pretty straightforward, no need to elaborate. The only thing is you still might be wondering that why these operations are not supported in tuples, and even in the list when we do, these operations are not supported. So Shraddha is saying, please give a live example of tuples and list. Difference between tuple into 2 and tup2. The only difference between tup into 4 and tup plus tuple when we do addition and multiplication is that you are trying to multiply those many times, and in the addition you are just not doing those many times. You're simply adding up whatever you have with you. So in this case, we simply had one tuple and we repeated that, we extended that 4 times. And in the previous example, in the addition one, we had two tuples, which we actually concatenated and we got the extended values. Okay, so we have caused the tuple to expand itself to 4 times. All values inside the tuple gets replicated 4 times with this operation. Pretty straightforward, right? Now you still would be wondering why Python is going to do this, why it doesn't really add up the elements of the tuples or in the list. It won't, because Python, in order to do this, you'll have to use NumPy, or you'll have to convert this into an array and then you can do it that way, or you will have to use a for loop to add to list. Let's say you want to add elements of two lists and you would want to place that into another list. But the only thing is you will have to create a new list in order to place those contents. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate that moving forward. Exactly. So Vinaya says that arithmetic operation is not possible, straight, simple, and sweet. That arithmetic operation on tuples and lists are not supported directly. But if you're going in a looping method, then that's a different thing. Unpacking tuples. The way you have tuples creations, we have unpacking. Okay, so unpacking is like we can extract all the values present within the tuple. Okay, so let's say a tuple of 1, 2, 3. We have variables A, B, C is equal to tuple. Now this thing needs to be understood is like you are trying to load every element value of a tuple into a new variable. Simple. So you have one tuple, one object here, and you want to load the elements of those objects into different variables. I hope that is clear. Why tuples cannot be altered, but multiplication addition is supported? It is actually like appending. But that's actually a very good question, Aparna. You can see Aparna is asking why tuples cannot be altered, but when we try to do multiplication and addition, it is like appending it, right? That is correct. But if you see, there are two reasons for this. Firstly, the tuples are interacting with the same data structure. That means that the other operator which you are applying on the object is also a tuple. Secondly, they are simply using the same values to represent themselves. They're not using any new values. So if you have two tuples with 1, 2 in the first tuple and 3, 4 in the second one, we don't have a fifth value which is coming in the new tuple which is being created or in the same tuple. So these are the reasons. And another reason is Python, when it stores values, especially actually a value, not a variable, it stores the value in the memory location. And the variable is simply pointing to that. So that means if you have two variables with value as 4, then Python has stored only the value for one time. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Kaja Lakshmi says, no, it's not changing the original position values. It's only finding the addition and multiplication, which is not changing the original position values will reflect the operation result. Thanks, Kaja Lakshmi, for that elaboration on that point. I hope it's clear, Aparna, but that was a good question. Yes, you can do that, Niranjan. It'll give a cross product. That's correct. So I'm sure this unpacking tuples is clear. So when we run this, it's going to give you 1, 2, 3 in different variables, unlike what it would give. Correct. So it's like passing by reference. That's correct. So please explain how inline reference. We're going to talk about that, Shilpi, moving forward, definitely. Okay, so unpacking heterogeneous tuples is also possible. The variables have to be provided in the appropriate manner, else the operation will fail. So pretty straightforward. I will convert this code a bit like this. And if we run this, you can see that the first three elements got unpacked into A, B, C. And since the fourth element was a tuple itself, so we had to give the form something like this. And then later on, you can say print of B and print of E, which is going to give you the individual elements. Swapna says, initially we can do changes means append, insert, or remove, but later we cannot make any changes. During that time, you can very well do that, Swapna. I'm sure that you're supporting that tuples questions which was asked. That's correct. So firstly, they are not across data structure. They are the same data structure, so they can interact with each other. And yes, later it cannot be changed. Only if A and B is given, will it unpack with only two elements? Let's try that. So there's a question that if we simply provide A and B is equal to tuple, is it going to unpack that for us? There's an error over there. Okay. So that means since the tuple holds this structure of 4 elements, you have to pass the 4 elements here. And let's say whatever way you can maintain this an I, comma, F or G, whatever you want to do that as. You can do this and it's going to run for you. So Danish, I hope that answered the question. What happened if variable is not equal to the value in the time of unpacking? So that's fine. Aditya says, we find average value of tuple. Can we find average value of a tuple? You'll have to use loop for that because you'll have to take every value, add it up, and then divide it by the number of items and store the result in a variable, but you can do that. You can create a third tuple object when we add 2 tuples. So it will create a third object over there. Okay, I think a lot of people. So let's go back here and try to do this part. Okay, this one. Okay. Sorry, let's go to the addition one, which I'll show you one part over here. So tuple 1 is 1, 2, 3, tuple 2 is 4, 5, 6. When we try to add the tuple, it's going to add up like this. So that means we are creating a new tuple. Okay. Okay, so we are creating a new tuple. Just to answer, I think somebody asked about how it is happening. It's belonging to the same structure. Let's say you are creating a tuple 3 over here, right? So that's the reason it is working. So let's say we don't want to create tuple 3. We create tup 4 and we'll do the same operation, tup 1 plus tup 2. And I'm going to say you print my tup 4. Okay. Same thing, no difference in this. But can we do this differently? Can we do this way that I want to say that you take tup1 is equal to, instead of you creating a new variable, you're saying tup1 plus tup2, and then you print my tup1. Same things. You can do the same thing as been asked in the question. We can add 2 tuples together. So now when we are printing tup1, we are still getting the same results of what we were getting in tup4 or tup3. But once you have created tup1, you seldom get any chance to do any more customizations or addition or deletion in this part. You can see I just have 2 methods available here with this one. So even you can use the same tuple to extend that with the help of another tuple like an addition, because they belong to the same structure. Or you can create a new variable the way we have created here, tup3. Okay, going to give us the same output. So this was clear. So this is clear. So we have to actually unpack a tuple the way it is defined. Let's see this one, the another block of code. We have 1, 2, 3 as single elements, and then the fourth one is actually a tuple. Actually, I've already answered that, Aditya. Can we find average values of tuples? Yes, you can do that. Um, you will have to create a loop wherein you are picking up every value of the tuple, adding that up, and then dividing it by the number of items if you're wanting to find the arithmetic mean, because arithmetic mean is nothing but the sum of all elements divided by the number of elements. If you want to do that, you can write a for loop and can derive. You can also write a function if you want. Both things you can do. But yes, to answer to your question, we can very well find the average value of a tuple till the time the tuple is numeric in nature. There's a question that how to get total number of objects in tuple. We have the count option, so you can simply get the count of tuple and you're going to get that output. So let's say this one, what will happen if we unpack the tuple this way? So the first three things are fine, but what about the fourth and fifth one? Let's see this one. Okay, it worked. How? Let's see. The above example extracts the inner tuple and set it to variable x. It is important to note that it did not extract the value of 4 and set it to x, okay? It instead extracted the entire tuple 4 and 5. The unpacking of tuple works within for loops as well. It is a common practice to unpack when iterating over sequences. So let's say this one. Let's come on this part. I think someone asked about how do we unpack tuples using a loop. So let's see this. First one is array creation. So we have created an array of 3 elements, and those 3 elements are nothing but tuple in itself. So let's say for a comma b in array, print both the values for us. So how do you think, what values this code is likely to put for you? Can anyone give any inputs? The first one, I think a lot of questions were coming from array, so you can see that this is the way the array is created in Python. This actually is more or less a list, because as I said, that arrays are now a deprecated thing in Python, at least in Python 3.x. We have replaced arrays with lists because they are more higher level options list gives compared to arrays. So this is pretty straightforward. So for a comma b in array, you print a comma b. And when we're going to run this one, it's going to give us the relevant outputs. So you can see that unpacking, we have actually unpacked a tuple from the entire list. We have unpacked a tuple from the complete list into different records out here. And if you want, we can store this into separate variables. We can store this into separate variables for variable 1, 2, 3. Instead of saying print, you can very well say variable 1 and the value a comma b, variable 2 value a comma b. So in this journey of Python, we might encounter complex extraction patterns. It is important to fully understand and practice these. We also use a lot of regular expressions if people have heard about. Okay, let's come back to pluck a few elements. So we saw that initially we were just extracting all the elements. So let's see this example. So we have this tuple. Some of the most recent additions is to allow for plucking out only few values from the beginning of the tuple. Okay. So let's see in this example. So we have tuple of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you see this? It's so simple that you give me only 1 and 2, and you can address that as star and put that into others. And you can see that the others is actually converted itself into a list. Can you see? So when we plucked items, it got these others got converted into a list. If you don't want that, you can simply prefix others with the tuple, and it will just stick itself to being a tuple. Now, there are certain things in programming which we all should understand, that programming expects some kind of an input, and it gives you some kind of an output. Okay. Now, in certain data structures, some part of data structures, when you input that as that data structure, the output is also likely to be that data structure. But in some of the data structures, what we go with, it may not necessarily that if you're inputting the same data structure, the output is also going to be the same. So if you see, the input here is actually a tuple into a variable. Here, the input was a tuple into this variable, but the output came out to be as a list. During the break, we spoke about data frames also, right? So in data frames also, this happens this way when we are using apply functions. So when you put the apply functions is a replacement to for statements and while loops. Basically, apply functions are replacement to loops, which we're going to talk about moving forward. But when you do that, it's not necessary that if you're inputting a data frame that the output is also going to be a data frame. The output is likely to be a dictionary, or it could be an array, or it could be a list, multi-dimensional list. So these things is that we will have to remember, and that will come with practice. So you can see that a comma b and others, rest of the 3, 4, 5 was not put into a tuple. It gave as a list because Python would definitely wonder that if you're wanting to unpack the tuple, you're wanting to do further operations on that tuple or those elements. So definitely it has to be a list. Okay, let's see. There's a request by people that could you just run the code without the star sign on that part? So let's see this. Very well. I'm happy to see those kind of questions. So a comma b comma others is equal to tuple. Let's see what happens. Okay, there is a value error. This we had seen before also, that if you have a specific structure of your tuple, then you have to unpack that in the same structure. Okay. Too many values to unpack. So we can simply go and use the scissor to chop this. Okay, I hope that answers the question, Danish. Karan, yes, star means everything. You're right. So Yuan says, why star used? Star means everything. Danish, star is mandatory if you want to do that. Otherwise, you will have to provide the structure for the tuple. Danish says, what if without star? Yes, star if compared. How can we put a star? Why we put a star? So Siju, I think the answer is also given that we are using star because we want to use rest of the items into this part. If I do C and then star and comma, it's going to put only 4 and 5 into others. You can see this. It simply put 4 and 5 into others. And we didn't print C. I've already done that. So you can see, I already did that. Sorry, I did that and I actually cut that. If I remove the star, Yuan, it will give an error. It will give an error, Yuan. I already tried that. I've already demonstrated that if I remove the star, it's going to give an error. I've already done that twice. And by the way, for people, those who are attending these sessions, I hope you have access to the practicing code, right? So I would recommend that you can keep practicing along. So let's say there's another thing. If you don't care about others, then we can also use an underscore to ignore the trailing values. So let's see this one. See, one way is to get your other value, and one way is to drop the other's value. So you can either use star and others, or you can use star and underscore to actually drop the value. So in this case, it's not going to give us an error. Okay. So let's say I have my tuple and my tuple is designed in this way. Okay. Okay, this is my tuple. And I would like to unpack this tuple. So what I mean to say is, when you want to unpack, we said that we need to define the variables, right? So I'm going to say you unpack only the first 2 items from this one, and rest of the items you put in others. Okay, I've done this. Is this part clear? So that means when I'm going to print others, it's going to give me the rest of the tuple structure, which is nothing but the remaining items. That could be the tuples itself or individual elements. Is this part clear? Yeah, star represents everything else apart from the declared variables. Okay, so I think I hope this is clear. This was the question. School Fun asked the question. Please repeat this part. So I'm just repeating that part. So I hope this is clear. So what options we have? So this is one way that you put. Let's say we are not talking about rest of the values for now. We are interested only in first two elements, that is 1 and 2, which we have successfully retrieved into variables called as A and B. So we are saying that you put other values into a variable called others. But you say, no, I don't wish to put these values into others. I would like to drop it. So let's going to create the same tuple, let's say. And I will say you take the first A and B and don't let me put values in others. I don't need them. I don't need them absolutely. So I don't need to have any memory that I need to store those things. Okay, so I'm going to say my whatever, or let's say my top. Okay, did this. I don't want is my top unpacked. Sorry about this. Okay, now you can see I'm going to do a print of my top. Colon print B, anything that you would like to do. But I hope this answered the question. Is star working like a pointer here? If so, we can just use star and others equal to tuple for unpacking that. No. See, guys, there's a question by Ananaya. See, there's a simple thing. There's nothing to be confused in this part. If you want, see, mainly when you're doing the unpacking, you do unpacking for the elements you are interested in. So just use the structure which you are interested in actually getting, and rest you can use either star others or star underscore to drop or store those items in something else. I don't see any room for any confusion here. Underscore will have all the remaining values stored here. No, underscore will have all the remaining values to be dropped. And if you want to store values, you need to specify the name of the variable, like star others or star unpacked others, any name you can give on to that part. But this one is pretty good, right? See, because in tuples, I'm interested only in few objects. I'm not interested in all the objects. So I'm going to retrieve only that object, and the rest I'm going to either drop it or store it into other variable. This is one option. Second option is that you unpack all the items of the tuple. But there is a condition to that. If you want to unpack all the items of a tuple, you need to pass the references in a similar way, the way the tuple is built. So if you have 20 elements in the tuple and some are lists, some are any other structures, you have to define the variables in that manner. Okay. Does A and B represents 1, 2, 3? No, A and B represents 1 and 2 separate. A and B represents 1 and 2 separately because I unpacked my tuple values into A and B, and rest of the values I dropped. I hope that answers the questions. Snigdha. That could be there. I mean, Abhishek is saying no, but underscore will have all the values. That's what I'm saying. Even if it has, that's what I said. Even if it has, yeah. So even if it has, if underscore has the values, it is more or less, you don't really want to use them, right? You want to drop them. Even if it is there, it was no use because you were interested on a value A and B. You can store that as any variable. You can store that as an others. You can store that as an underscore. But the reason I said drop is because typically we are not interested in those values. If we would be interested in those values, we would have indexed it and would have retrieved it. That is correct, Snigdha. So here A is equal to 1 and B is equal to 2. So here, that's what we passed. If you want to extract the entire tuple, the structure which we're going to pass is C, comma, whatever, F, comma, G. This is what we learned, right? This is the structure that we're going to pass if you want to unload or you want to unpack all the elements of the tuple. There's a lot of combinations coming in. So can you put a star used here? Please explain the use of star underscore. Shilpi, I think that is clear. So we are simply storing these into different objects, either underscore or either into others. The reason I said drop is because we are not interested in those values. We would like to drop it from our sequence. If I want to unpack first and last values of a tuple, how do we do it? That's a tricky question. Can you put star on A on B and print? Yes, we can. So there's a lot of combinations coming. Then why the output comes as 1, 2, 3, and 3, comma 4? Star is a placeholder. That is correct. We're using star underscore as a placeholder. That is correct. Okay, we'll move forward. Definitely. You'll get to know more about this. Okay, definitely we'll do that, Mayank. We'll move forward. We'll try to understand other options which are available in tuples, and then we'll try to go on with list also. I'm planning to cover some topic of list also so that we have a good amount of discussion between list and tuples. Okay. So let's first create this tuple. And the tuple, it says 1, 2, 1, 1, 3 is the values for these tuples. And I would say you give me tup.count because I can get this option and question mark. Okay. So tup the count and the value return the number of occurrences of a value. Okay, so let's say we are saying that you count how many times a particular value is appearing. So this count is not going to give us 1, 2, 3. It's not going to give us 5 as such. You can see it's basically an error because we did not pass the argument which is required for this particular method. Because if you go to the documentation, we can see that there is a value that needs to be provided. I want to count that how many times value 1 appears in this particular tuple. I'm going to say it appears 3 times. It's like, taking up the distinct of this. Chandan has a thing like, let's say there are so many values inside a value. Is there any other way to unpack the value dynamically? So far, Chandan, we are using this method to unpack. But I'm sure, we can definitely find better ways to unpack when our tuples are really complex. I'm not saying this is the only way. I'm not saying this is the only way, but definitely, there are ways that we can make things simplistic, far simplistic when we have complex tuples with us. So that we'll have to explore. So here you can see that we actually used one of the methods from the tup object, which is count. And what this thing is doing, it counts the number of times a specific element occurs within a tuple. But since the tuples are immutable, a count operation on tuple is generally faster than the count operation on a list or array. Now, this is an important thing, okay? This one. And this is pretty evident because tuples, you don't have to worry about indexes. Definitely, yes. I have a question. Can you print double quotes into double quotes? Output would be a blank. A blank cell or a blank record might also come as an NA when you want to do that. But that will come as a blank space. Okay, so the tuple provides a second method called as index. So you saw that we have got two options in our tuple methods, right? One is a count and the other one is an index. So count, we have already seen that count is useful now to take the count of this. If you want to get the, so length is something which you can use. So print the length of the tuple is 5. That means it has got 5 elements. But if you want to see that if there is an element called as a value as 1, that how many times then that value is? That actually is 3 times. 1 is actually 3 times. 1 is actually appearing 3 times. Okay, but so for people, those who are wondering how to count the items in a tuple is you can use LEN, which stands for length. You can use LEN to get that output. That's correct. That's correct, Abhishek. So mean star is the way to have the rest of the values, which variables are not assigned to unpack. That is absolutely correct. So let's go with the index. So now we know what a count method does. What does an index method do? So we haven't actually utilized the help for the index. So let's say tup dot index. And you can see that we've got 3 arguments to this. So tup dot index, you give a value, you give a start and the stop to that. So what is this? Returns first index of value. So let's see what happens in this. So so the tuple provides second method called index. Unlike count, index method gets the first index of occurrences of the specified value. We can see this in the below example. So you can see so print first index of 1. So tuple index 1, index 2, and index 3. So let's see this one. Okay, so tup for the index of value 1 is actually 0. For the value 2 is actually 1. And for the value 3 is actually index position 4. I hope this is clear and requires no elaborations. If we unaware the values in tuple and we need to count of the tuple, how we can achieve. I already showed that to you, Yogita. I hope that's you have the answer. Mayank says how to filter the output received under number or under NA where no records found for top result. You can use the not equal to sign for that tuple, not equal to NA, and that should solve that filtering stuff for you. Niranjan says in the example top 1 plus it is actually modifying the tuple 1, so it is not ideally immutable. So Niranjan, this is the same question which I think one more person asked some time back, and I gave the reasoning is that they are typically from the same structure, and we are not trying to do a change structure, cross value from a different structure into the tuples. So that is likely to work, but if you convert that into any other stuff, that may not work. But yes, you're right. It is technically within the tuple itself, it will be mutable to add or do operations on that part, you can see, but it's not going to allow addition of any new values for you. Supreet says we want to count only unique values. What is the formula? Okay. Aparna says, in this example, the new tuple is created, but its address is assigned to tup1. So the original tup is still there, but new tuple's address is assigned to tup1. That is correct. Vinaya, I think it will not modify the original tuple. New object with the same name gets created with added values. So new object with the same name is created with tuple1. So that itself means it is overwriting the previous one, right? That means it is modifying the original object. It will definitely create a new object. You can check the memory location for that. So that will definitely tell us. Well, index is simple. Snigdha says, please explain example on the index. See, the one way is you pass the index and get the values of the tuple, right? The other way is you pass the values and get the index for those values. Simple things. How do you get the values by passing the index? By using the standing bracket. And how do you get the index values for specific values? By using the index method. So we have the top dot index. And then for value 1, what is the index? It is 0. For value 2, it is 1. And for value 3, it is 4. Jessica has a question. How do we get the option of drop down? That's simple. You have to use the tab key on your keyboard. So insert the cell below. You can see the top. Use the dot. You have to use the dot to specify the method. And in Python, sometimes it extends to further 2 dots. Let's say you have one method here. I'm using a tab key. So top dot, the tab key. Sometimes you have to wait for maybe 7 or 8 seconds to do that. So please be patient. Use the tab key, get the output. Let's say this one dot something. There are like 3 or 4 stages sometimes. In this, there is no further intelligence that we can get, but you can do this for other objects like list or something. I hope that answers the question. How can we check index value 4 in the output as entry is given as 3? No, see, entry given as 3 is actually 3 here is a actual value. It is not an index. Yeah, tuples are iterables. Yes, Manoj, because you can loop them, right? I mean, I'll give you an example. So insert cell below. Sorry, I'll cut this. Go here and say insert cell below, and you say top. Sorry, I already have top, right? So this is the top. Okay, so I'm going to say for, let's say for I in top, you print the I. Okay, you can see this. So when I said for I in top, which is actually tuple here, which has got some elements, whatever elements we saw. We can do this. These are the elements. Okay, so these are the elements that we got, and now we got it into a loop. So that means it is an iterable object. If it wouldn't be an iterable object, it would not have supported for, because iterable objects requires that it gives the flexibility to other structures to pick items one by one from their collection. So that collection they offer to be iterable. One by one, they can offer you items one by one. I hope that answers the question. And I hope the index is also clear. Now, before we move to the next one, that is lists, I want to be sure from you that what we have studied has given you some insights about how we can use this. And please do not forget my refrigerator example. That might sound a little boring, but that is actually true. Just, can think about that. Just give me one moment, guys. I'll be back. Just a second. So I'm back. Okay, so how are you feeling, guys, after completing almost 3 lessons in Python? I hope this is all helping us, especially I understand that some people are at a very beginning stage, and there are people who are able to relate to what's happening and also pass in some examples. So definitely, this would be a challenging situation for people who are looking at this for the first time. But let me tell you guys, if I can do it or anyone can do it, so can you. So you just have to put a little of an extra effort and little focus on this part. And if you have access to these recordings, then I will also encourage you to keep listening to the recording because most of the time we simply look at the screen and go in our thoughts. But you should listen to this again. How to get the index value of 1 for its last occurrences. At the beginning, you explained the advantage of using tuples over list. I really don't know when it's optional to use tuples. I mean, in most of the cases, Michael, we are using lists and tuples in tandem when we are developing production level systems. So when you're actually working on creating programs, you are very much in need to create tuples and lists, especially both ways. Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mayank. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, Abhishek. So now we are going to move and going to transit our attention from tuples and going to the list. So a list is similar to a tuple, but it's mutable in nature. So lists are defined by square brackets, unlike tuples where we saw they are defined using round brackets. We can add and remove elements from the list, thereby giving flexibility to developers. Lists in Python are very similar to list and collection classes for other. Now, let me come back to my Amazon example, which I spoke about. And so people will be able to relate that when are we using lists. Now, you need to understand one thing from programming perspective is that whatever we program is actually the metaphor, the actual functioning, correct? Is actually a representation or it's a semantic representation of what we're actually wanting to achieve. So just an example, let's say you define a web page and in the bottom section of the web page where you get the customers also bought, and sometimes you also get that if you're buying a camera, let's say, so you get an accessories option also, customers also bought along with this product like an SD card or maybe a USB cable, anything for that matter. Any accessories that you would like to buy is also displayed in the bottom of the sections. Currently, I'm not talking about how they are able to create these synchronizations. Like if you are looking at a camera, then they're showing you relevant accessories for that, like a tripod or maybe a strobe lights or something like that. I'm not talking about that. That is a different thing. I'm simply talking about representing the information on a web page. So let's say your web page is built using some JavaScript and HTML, and then you have given the accommodation of a list over there. Now, you need to understand that we are creating this list as a placeholder or as a container in the web page only once. But at any point in time, when you actually host this web page, many users would be accessing the web page, correct? And it is to no surprise to anybody that what I will see on the web page will be different than what you will see on the web page, correct? So if people who are located on the western side of the country or people who are located on the northern or southern side of the country, we are definitely not going to look at the same information when we're going to access YouTube's or Amazon or any other channel for that matter, because these channels are personalized for regional options, right? So if I am operating from Karnataka, I might get a lot of options for the region specific over there. If I'm operating from any other state, definitely I will get those options. So they are all geographically regionalized, personalized for that matter. So your list compartment is just created once, and the user is coming on from, let's say, other countries, or people are coming from in India from different cities. Those people are going to see different recommendations in that list. So what will happen in that list? Items will come in. So let's say if Suvir logs in, Suvir is likely to see, based on his choice of past history, what I've been surfing on Amazon. Amazon is going to recommend me certain products. So my items in my list is going to be different compared to the items which you will have in your list. So if a person is logging from northern side of the country, definitely you would see a different list of items. So what in the backend happening? A lot of list of extensions, appending, removing items, putting inside the items, creating new lists, whatever kind of operations are happening, it's happening in the backend. So in those scenarios, we're going to use lists heavily. This is one of the examples. As we move on, I'm going to give you more examples on where we are likely to use this. A list is similar to a tuple, but it is mutable in nature. Okay, lists are defined by square brackets instead of round brackets. We can add and remove elements from the list, thereby giving flexibility to developers. Okay, so let me try to run this one. I will have to refresh this web page. Just give me a second. Guys, we'll wait for a second. We'll refresh the web page. I hope you're still able to see the screen and hear my voice. The server, the Jupyter server is going to respond in just a couple of minutes. Sometimes it happens. It's going to be back in just a moment. Okay, fine. Thank you. As we wait for another moment, I have started the Jupyter notebook on my local machine. So in case we are unable to log in into this on time, we will switch to my desktop view. So just give me a moment. Okay, I've resumed the share. I hope we are able to see the screen and also able to hear me. Okay, guys, can you all hear me back? And I hope I have shared the screen also. You can let me know in case if this is back. I will switch the window to the other application on the server. But for now, I have launched it from my local machine. So I hope you're still able to look at the screen and at least we'll be able to proceed on this part. Okay, so yes, so lists are just very similar to tuples, but the only thing is that it is mutable in nature. That means we can change the items within the list, and also lists are defined by square brackets instead of round ones. So pretty straightforward. So you have to remember these conventions that when you create a tuple, it should be with round brackets. When you create a list, it should be with standing brackets. And let me tell you guys, moving forward, let's say we have done these tuples and the list, there would be some part of a practice when we will use this as a combination to create to achieve a problem statement. So if you want to do the problem statement for traveling salesman problem like the way we have, or like the Tower of Hanoi, I think you have heard that as a very fundamental um, thing. So you can look at those parts wherein we will use the combination of lists and tuples and other data structures to actually solve a particular problem. Okay, so let's say, how do we create a list? By simply saying my underscore list, standing bracket, 1 comma 2 comma 3. And this is again creating an integer list. Now, if you talk about creating different types of list like string or integer or a combination for that matter, yes, that is very much possible. So let me run this part. Yes, it is simply running. Let's say this is my tuple. So a tuple has got 3 elements. I can actually convert tuple into a list. Can you see this? We have actually converted a tuple into a list in this code. Correct? So how does it say? When a tuple is converted to a list, the order of elements is retained. The list contains elements in the same fashion the way appear in the tuple. I hope this is clear. It requires no elaboration, guys. Correct? So now we have things like you can convert a tuple into this. Okay, let me try that. Thanks for the heads up. Just give me a second. Let me run this. Okay, connect this. Okay. Yes, I want to share this. Perfect. So we are back on the server. Thanks team for that. Okay, so let's go with this. We have successfully converted our tuple into a list. Now, I'm sure that there would be another question from people. From the morning, we have these questions coming a lot of times that why are we using tuples? And now, when we had to convert tuples into list, why did we create tuples in the first place? Correct. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to throw their questions, but that's fine. We'll try to be simplistic on those lines. So when we say that we have some tuples and we would like to convert that into a list, there is a straightforward way to do that. But when is this required in the programming, that when you have to convert your tuples into a list? Purely depends on the need and the requirement, or the need of the hour. So if you're writing a program which requires your certain elements to be converted into a certain factor, which happens a lot of times when you program, you generally, what you think may not come out to be logically, you are right, but technically there would be a lot of challenges that you will have to find workarounds to get your job done. Eventually, see, because the manager is not going to say, why have you used this for loop here and why did you put this variable here? That micro level management, if there is happening, then it's a good thing for you. That means he's trying to make you better every day. In case if it's not, then maybe when the initial audits are going to happen about the quality of the code which developers are writing for a particular product, that time, people might penalize you about the way you have written the program. There is a better way. You have written the program in 60 lines of code wherein it could have got completed only in 25 or maybe in 20. So that is itself is a cost to the company, and that will make you a better developer if we try to look out for these things. But anyways, for tuples can be converted into a list by using a simple keyword called as list. So as we saw that when tuples are converted, the order always remains same. So Chandan is saying to update the content, we convert tuple to a list. Absolutely. But why did you create a tuple when you knew, or when you know in some part of your projects that you will require to update the content, correct? So why not you prepare that as a list in the first place? So there's another, not another, but the same question is coming up, that when are tuples used and when are lists used? So I think we'll have to write a program. I have to write a program for you wherein I am using both tuples and lists, and also demonstrating where are we converting, what is the requirement first to create tuples and the list, and then if we are converting any of those structures into the new ones, so why are we and how are we converting, that also I can demonstrate. But to answer to that question, Supreet, we are using and let's say there is a price section for a particular product and prices are maintained in vectors, or the prices of the products are maintained in tuples, so that they are non basically immutable. No one can change the price for a particular product. Anything else you can change, you can store the title of the products into a list wherein you can change the title of the product. But when it comes to the pricing, I'm giving you a hypothetical example. When you're writing the pricing, that is secured in a tuple. So even if a hacker is trying to hack your system and wanting to change the price of your product, Python will not allow you to do that, because a hacker can hack into the system, but he will not change the source code. Like, he will not change from tuples to list and change it. But anyways, if someone wants to damage the system, they can do it anyways. But I think you can take this as an example. If I want to maintain item pricing, which is static pricing, I will maintain it in my vectors. If the pricing is dynamic, I will maintain that into a list. If I want to maintain both the pricings, what I will do, I will have one price as the MRP of the product, which is the maximum price at which the product can be sold. And the other one would be the selling price. And selling price is quite dynamic. I can change it from 199 to 299 anytime. So I think that would be a better example to put forward. Or another example I gave you about the currency one, right? So when, let's say you want to store your historic currency rates, you have 24 different rates for a particular currency in a day, right? Because every hour the rate changes for a currency. So if you have 24 data points for your currency, for a single currency in a single day, you can store that into a vector, because you don't want those values to be tampered at all by the human or by the system, because those values are facts and factuals. You cannot change those values. And further 6 months or next 1 year reporting for your organization is dependent on those pricings which you have stored that into tuples. So that also you can take as an example. So lists are mutable, so we can carry out an in-place change of any elements. We will also see what is an in-place change, okay? So my list, but we need to see what we have in the my list first. We have 3 kind of fruits with us. That's another good question by Yuan. If a list is converted from a tuple, then is it mutable? Yes, it is mutable. You can just recall our example when we can alter our list which was inside a tuple. You remember an example when the second element of our tuple was actually a list. So when we could alter a list inside a tuple, but when we have got it outside, how do you think it will prevent us from changing it? Absolutely nothing can stop from changing it. Okay, so I hope that answered the question. So my list has got 3 elements. I'm saying get me the first element for that. So how do you retrieve the first element? You retrieve the first element by my underscore list. Give me the first element, which is actually Apple. It's the second element. Technically, it is the first element because indexing starts with 0. And this is Apple, but I would want to change this with pineapple. let's say I would like to replace the entire fruit with another fruit because I don't like apple, I like pineapple. So now the new list, what we're getting is an orange, pineapple, and banana. You can see this. So you can relate this with our Amazon example. Earlier, for a specific person, it was showing an Apple phone, let's say, and this time it is showing another phone, maybe from a company called as Pineapple, something like that. Mohit has a question. List can be of customer name, which needs flexibility of edits, while tuple can be a type of sale that is cash or credit. Absolutely. See, I mean, you can relate this anyways, Mohit. This is correct. So anything which is a fact, in fact, I'm talking from number perspective because business data analytics is all about business analytics. We are ultimately doing this for companies and companies' data because that is very large in size. We are not doing this for ourselves. Maybe I'm not using these systems to calculate my monthly profitability or how much I have spent on my credits here and there. No, and we are doing this for a large companies. So definitely, uh, things like if there is a process that whether the customer has paid by cash or by credit, you can store those values in a non-tamperable objects like your tuples. Definitely, you can do that. Yuan is if we have to change the value of a tuple, can we convert it into a list and then make, I've already answered this. Yes, you can convert it into a list and then make the changes and then convert it to the tuple again. Yes, you can do it. Very well, you can do it. But you will have to create a new tuple for this, Yuan. See, if you create a tuple one with 1, 2, 3 values, you change that into a list, you change the value. Okay. Okay, you can do that. You can try to do that, Yuan. I think that's going to work. And that list you convert back into a tuple. 3-step process. So list is allowing, definitely it allowed to change our second element, which was actually some other fruit to some other fruit. And we can see that we managed to change apple to pineapple within the list. The first element is the list is at index 0. So that is some other fruit which we have. Okay, but let's see what kind of an options we have in this part. So we have my list, and my underscore list can allow me to do all these things. I can append. And guys, if you want to get the complete help on this, I generally do a lot, because what happens when you write programs, you tend to forget the arguments to that. Okay, so let's say append, clear, copy, count, extend. These are all the methods that I can use. So let's say append. I'm using a tab key, a dot and the tab key. Let's say append and question mark. So, and you can take this to the next page. It says my underscore list dot append. There's an object. Sorry. I'm somehow not able to increase the font, but it has just append that with the object. It simply says that you provide the object. I'm not sure we're not able to zoom this. Okay, it behaves a little differently. I'll just read out for you, or maybe I hope you're able to see the screen still. So it says my underscore list dot append object. You provide the object, whatever object you want to provide. And there's a forward slash. So it says append object to the end of the list. There's a specific thing given that it always appends the object to the end of the list. So when we are adding elements to a list, it's like either you want to append it, there's one way, or you would want to extend it. Okay. Or so what are the differences in these things? Or you would want to insert. Append, extend, and insert. So append, we know. Appends value. at the last of the list, correct? Thanks, Abhishek, for that. Chandan, I hope you have got that answer. Appends value at the last of the list, correct? What does an extend do? This is one thing that we know. So we are adding elements to a list, but there are three ways to add elements to a list. One is you can use an append, you can use an extend, you can use an insert. Now you can relate this to an example of a refrigerator. You would want to append items to a particular shelf. You might have placed maybe 2 or 3 items in the morning, but now you would want to push these items a bit behind what you did in the morning, and you would want to have new items in the same shelf though. So you would use an append. Extend is something like, say, you have 6 items placed something, and you would want to place another 6 items next to that. Could be in the form of eggs, let's say, in the refrigerator. So you refilled your the tray of your eggs with the new ones by extending those things. Of course, you had to open the refrigerator for that. You had to choose the tray and then place those items in the tray. And insert is to add new items. Let's say you bought some chocolates or maybe some desserts or maybe ice creams. You would want to stack it into the fridge. So you are inserting new items into the refrigerator. So let's study this and how do we use add elements into a list. Very flexible. It is very flexible and it is not rigid like tuple. Okay, it allows us to do a lot of combinations. So let's see. Just like we can modify elements in the list, we can add more elements to the list. But you have to take a choice whether you want to append it, you want to extend it, or you want to insert it. There are 3 methods we just studied. These are the 3 methods to add elements to your list. Let's see how do we do it. So there's a variable called as gen, and then we are going to print the gen. That's correct. So I think somebody has already answered into the chat box, but that's fine. So let's go with this and say this one. So the range was actually 0 to 10. And then we have a my list, which is a list of gen. So whatever list you had, whatever gen values you had, you converted that into a list, and then you specified that as a print. So this is my list is actually a list which got derived from our gen variable, which was a generator, number generator. So that's for the sequence number generation, we've got it using the range function. So the gen function generates a sequence of integers starting from 0 up to the number specified. You remember we had done range from 0 to the length of the tuple or maybe the list. Using for loops, you can do that. We can pass the range to the list by using the list function. This creates a list of integers from 0 to 9. That's what we have. And we used a simple keyword like list just to convert that into a list. This is called as transformation. So we transformed that range structure. What was the earlier data type for that range? I mean, not data type, but object type. Can you see? It was a class of range. And then we transformed the structure of range into a list by using a keyword called as list, which is this one. Simple, right? So now you can see this is an activity of a transformation. When we speak about data processing, data transformation, so this is just a very small example on data transformation, but in practical, we generally transform a larger data set. Gen is a variable you want. Okay, so let's go with the append. And what we have seen, append, what does an append do? Append always appends the value at the last of the list. Yes, Rockstar is saying range function creates integers, and you can define the range of your integers. So let's say my underscore list dot append, you append 10 to my list. And when you actually print this back, you can see there's a new item which is added, which is 10. This is for simplicity, we have used 10, but we can use any number, any given number that you would like to append. Can we append vectors to this? Can we append new lists to this? That we will have to explore. That instead of using a single number 10, can we place a list instead of number 10, or can we place a tuple instead of number 10? So the append function provides on a list, adds the specified element to the end of the list. As we can see in the example, the number 10 got added after number 9. So instead of append, we can also choose to insert an item in the position. So if we want to choose the insert, so we will have to go and check. We'll have to go and check the documentation for insert. Sorry, documentation for extend. Apologies. Okay, so what is it here? So inserts object before the index. Now this is different than append. Append is only at the last of the structure. Insert index is before the index. So if you specify the index value, so you have the index value, you specify what index value you would want to place this. At whatever index you specified, it's going to place the object just before that. So let's see it. I'm saying at the position index number 5, I'm going to say insert a cell above and my underscore list. These are the values for that. I'm saying index number 5, so that means 6, correct? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry about this, it means 5 out here. So I'm saying you insert A. So that means it should be 4, comma, A, comma, 5. It should be 4, comma, A, comma, 5. That's so simple in the insert part. Again, if you can compare this with your refrigerator, you can insert an item at a specified position wherever you have the index of that. So if you need to place a water bottle in your refrigerator, you need to find the index position to place it. And once you find it, you can place that just before that index. Very simple things. No, Aparna says we cannot use append, extend, insert in a tuple. Absolutely not. We can use only 2 methods in tuples, that is count and index. And count also doesn't give you the element count in that. And index also doesn't give you the index count in that. We have already done that. Danish says, what is the difference between insert and append? We just discussed about that. Append, we say like current, you append the table, you append the SQL table. Append means what? At the last of the record or end of the file. You append it at the end of the file. So append does the same thing. If you're wanting to add items, it's going to add at the end of the list for you. That is append. And insert, you have to specify at what position you would like to insert the record. Okay, so you have to specify the index position, and then it's going to insert the record right before that index position. So here we have specified index position 5, and that's how we got character A landed before 5 and between 4 and 5, in fact. It's 4 after A and then 5. I hope that answers the question, Danish. So this is what we had planned for today. Then we have the other structures about how to use extend also. So we can definitely demonstrate the extend part, and then we can stop for today. And let's keep the rest of the things for our next session. I will try to bring in more examples in the next session, okay, on these things, so that whatever questions we have are all addressed. Now let's see, my underscore list dot extend. Now it's saying iterable. Now you need to fall back on what we had studied, guys, before. So far, we have studied tuples and list, correct? And we have realized that tuples are iterables. I demonstrated that to you using a for loop, correct? So tuples are iterables, lists are iterables. So here you can see the argument is you can extend the list with some iterable objects. And in our case, so far we have studied tuples and list. So that means we can extend an existing list with tuples or with lists. That we can see maybe coming in the coming sessions as we move on. So that's all from my side, guys, today. I hope the session was informative and we did learn something, and we'll try to make it more interesting as we move on. So thanks everyone for joining. I thank you. Over to you, Sanket. Thank you, Danish. Thank you, Lalit.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Suvir. Thank you very much for this. So all of you, thank you so much for staying with us on a Sunday, afternoon and evening. It's a lovely experience to host you. We will resume again next Saturday at 11 a.m. So you have the entire weekend free. Entire week free. If you have missed any items, please go ahead and you can open them out, right? You can basically go back to the recordings and check the recordings and maybe revise on anything that you need to revise on. You have that option available to you. The cloud books will continue running. You can keep using the cloud for all your requirements. There is a feedback form that we have shared on the chat. We would really appreciate if you can fill the feedback form. We would love to hear how we can make our sessions better. I also have an interesting announcement for all of you before you go for the week. We had a lucky draw yesterday, and congratulations to all of the lucky draw winners who won the Amazon Echo Dots. Our team will reach out to you tomorrow to make sure we get those Echo Dots delivered to you as soon as possible. But the interesting part is, for all those who didn't win, there is still hope for winning some other stuff. So join in again on Saturday, and we'll be making an announcement of another interesting contest that we have planned for all of you. I won't be revealing the details right now. My team does not want to allow me to do that. So please be patient and look forward to seeing you again on Saturday. And we have an interesting contest planned for you for next weekend. Until then, keep practicing data science. You've taken the first step towards becoming a data scientist and started your journey in data science. And this will be something that you're going to add to your skill set and you're going to remember for the rest of your lives. So I hope we've made a difference, in helping you to be a data scientist and beginning your data science journey. So thank you very much, all of you, for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you again, 11 a.m. next Saturday. We will start dot on time as usual. Until then, have a lovely week. Be safe and work from home as much as possible. Thank you so much, and see you soon.